At 11 years old, a doctor sat Lionel Messi down and told him his body was broken, and that if nothing changed, he would never grow tall enough to play professional football. That doctor was right about the condition. He was wrong about everything else. When Messi was diagnosed, he stood just 1.27 meters tall. That's 4 feet 2 inches. Now, the average 10-year-old boy stands around 4 feet 6 inches. So picture that gap. A kid who was already the most talented player anyone in Rosario had ever seen, and he was shorter than kids 4 years younger than him. That's the number almost nobody tells you, and it's the number that makes everything else in this story hit differently. Here's what this video is actually about. Most people know Messi had a growth condition. Almost nobody knows what was actually happening inside his body, what it cost to fix it, how close Barcelona came to never signing him at all, and the one question about his health that nobody, not even doctors, can fully answer today. We're going through all of it, and I promise by the end, you're going to look at Messi completely differently. The last detail is the one that genuinely nobody talks about, and it's the most interesting of the whole story. So stay with me. The condition is called growth hormone deficiency, or GHD, a rare health condition caused by insufficient amounts of growth hormone in the body, leading to impaired growth and development. And here's the part most content skips. GHD is a lack of growth hormone in the body that affects normal physical development. But what that actually means for a kid is that their pituitary gland, the tiny gland at the base of the brain that controls growth, is essentially underperforming. The body just doesn't get the signal to grow. And left untreated, the consequences aren't just being short. Without treatment, GHD can lead to stunted growth, delayed bone development, poor muscle growth, delayed puberty, and slower physical maturation. For a footballer, that's not just a height problem. That's a physical development problem. The muscle, the bone density, the strength, all of it is compromised. Now here's the thing that almost no one mentions when they tell this story. The diagnosis wasn't instant. Messi's childhood endocrinologist, Dr. Diego Schwartzstein, has described a structured process of elimination, ruling out every other possible cause before landing on GHD. So for a period, doctors genuinely did not know what was wrong with him. And the other thing Schwartzstein has said that I love? His job wasn't to build the greatest footballer of all time. His job was just to make sure a kid grew normally. He had zero idea he was shaping the future GOAT. He was just a doctor trying to help a small boy from Rosario grow up. So they find the diagnosis. Now they need a solution. And the solution is where this story gets really uncomfortable, really fast. At the age of 12, Messi had to inject growth hormones into his leg every night. Not pills, not some quick clinic visit. A preteen boy injecting himself in the leg every single night for years. His body was able to achieve the growth and development it could not have reached on its own because of those injections. But the physical reality of what that looked like day to day is something almost nobody puts into words. And on top of the injections, there was the cost. This was an expensive treatment and cost almost $900 a month. That's your rent. That's your car payment and your groceries. Every single month, just to keep a kid's body developing the way it should naturally. The cost of the treatment was too high, and his family was struggling to continue to afford the hormone injections. And this is where the popular version of the story usually just says Barcelona stepped in and skips straight to the heartwarming part. But that's not what actually happened. The real sequence is messier, more interesting, and honestly, more human. Before Barcelona was ever in the picture, it was Newell's Old Boys, Messi's boyhood club in Rosario, that helped cover some of the costs first. So the "nobody believed in him" narrative? It's not quite right. Multiple people took a bet on this kid before Barca did. At Newell's Old Boys in Rosario, Messi was so prolific that opposition coaches would complain before matches, insisting a boy that small couldn't possibly be the age on the registration form. They knew what they had, and they tried to keep him going. But eventually, the costs became too much, and Newell's couldn't sustain it. That's when Barcelona entered the picture. And even then, the story is not the clean fairy tale people tell. When 13-year-old Leo Messi arrived in Barcelona from Argentina in September 2000, Barcelona sporting director Carles Rexach recognized his talent in less than 5 minutes. But recognizing talent and actually signing a sick, undersized 13-year-old from Argentina are two completely different things. Then club president Joan Gaspard was of the opinion that signing such a young player was risky. The board was dragging its feet. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. Jorge Messi had become impatient at the lack of commitment from the club. He was waiting to get a final decision from FC Barcelona. And this is where the napkin comes in. And I need you to understand what was actually happening in that moment, because every version of this story makes it sound romantic and spontaneous. It wasn't. Messi's agents Josep Maria Minguella and Horacio Gaggioli threatened to sell the youngster somewhere else. Agents of other clubs, including Real Madrid, had shown interest in signing Lionel Messi. Barcelona was on the verge of losing him, over the exact illness your title is about. A sick, undersized Argentine kid, and the club's president thought it was too big a risk. Rexach didn't write on a napkin because it was a beautiful gesture. He wrote on a napkin because, at a meeting at the Pompeia Tennis Club in Barcelona, Rexach understood that Jorge was in need of a reassuring message that the club was going to sign his son. And there was no formal contract on hand, so he wrote a commitment on a paper napkin to sign Messi. He did it to stop them from walking out the door. And the napkin itself? It reads, Carlos Rexach, technical secretary of FCB, commits under his responsibility, despite the opinion of others who are against signing Lionel Messi, as long as the agreed fees are maintained. Despite the opinion of others who are against it. That's written right there, on the document. Barcelona's own sporting director was overruling his president in real time, in blue ink, on a lunch napkin. That napkin later sold at auction for nearly $1 million. Which is a fun detail. Now, after he signed, Barcelona not only let him join the club's famed youth academy, La Masia, but they also paid for the rest of his medical treatment after he arrived in Spain at the age of 13. The order matters. They signed him first. The medical coverage came after. That's not a club that said, we'll pay for your treatment, so come join us. That's a club that said, you're ours, and then figured out the rest. If not for the treatment, the Argentine star would have been 4 feet 7 inches tall. And we know what happened instead. Over time, Messi grew to an adult height of about 5 feet 7 inches. Now here's where I told you we'd get to the thing nobody talks about. And I meant it. GHD is generally considered a lifelong medical condition rather than a temporary illness. The treatment Messi received as a kid addressed the symptoms during his critical growing years, but it didn't cure the underlying condition. Because GHD is typically managed rather than cured, people diagnosed during childhood are usually re-evaluated after they finish growing to determine whether they still require growth hormone therapy as adults. And here's the open question. Messi has never publicly indicated that he continues to require treatment. Nobody knows. There's been no public statement, no medical disclosure. The man who might be the greatest footballer who ever lived may or may not still be managing a condition that doctors told him would end his career before it started. That's not a settled story. That's a genuinely unresolved chapter of one of the most documented careers in sports history. And that's kind of the whole point of Messi, isn't it? Every time you think you understand the full picture, there's another layer underneath it. So let's bring this together. A kid in Rosario, 4 feet 2 inches tall, getting nightly injections into his leg, with a family that couldn't pay the bills, a boyhood club that believed in him before anyone else, a Barcelona board that almost passed, one man writing on a napkin to stop him from walking out the door, and a condition that, to this day, we don't fully know the end of. That's the real story. Not the tidy version. The actual one. If you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, we've got a video on the full Messi versus Ronaldo debate that goes way deeper than people expect. Drop in the comments. Did Barcelona deserve Messi, or did they just get lucky? Because honestly, reading that napkin, it's a fair question. Subscribe if you're new. We do this kind of deep dive storytelling every week, and the next one is going to hit just as hard.